I always said, like, when the first time I came to Donegal, that wasn't going to East Donegal. I came with Dermot Byrne and Steve Moran, yeah, up to Kilcar for the weekend there, and I came away from that realising that in Clare you were given an instrument to play music, and in Donegal you learned how to play the fiddle. Do you know? So I just realised. So prior to that, when I played with Dad, like, because he's your dad, it doesn't seem strange, and it was on Mam's side as well. So I just played along. I didn't pay all that much attention to what he was doing, but after I listened to like the high part of the road and the stops and the oak tree and all that, it's like, mother of God. So I think after that, when I played with him, I never took my eyes off him. You know what I mean? I was always watching what he was doing and how he would do things. And then he asked me to play in Doolin with him. And we went to McGann's, which of course was a revelation in itself in the early 80s. Dad got guitar, never heard that before. All this kind of, and long hair and beards and people having great fun, like, and but up there he was more himself. He would express more of his own music, and that's what everyone wanted to hear there. So that was an absolute masterclass for, like, I'd say 2 years.
There were books like Alan's Irish Fiddler, where you'd have some lovely old jigs and reels in it, you know. But there were all sorts of books. I remember a particular book that Tommy had of, I think it was Scottish and English tunes of very old hornpipes and some very complicated hornpipes, and maybe music from the like of James Scott Skinner and James Hill and others, you know. And but this was an amazing book. I had a loan of it for a few years. I was very sorry I had to give it back, but it was a fantastic book and it's full of amazing stuff. A very, very old book indeed.
Yeah, and even just tunes, like tunes that you would have been listened to in sessions, and then hearing them then being played by Tommy Peoples, it was like, oh my God, this is a brand new tune again. You know, something like the Salamanca Reel, for example, or, you know, it was crazy the way he just transformed that tune into something new again. I suppose the phrasing for me too was something that stood out, not just like his ornaments, but and maybe his triplets. Sometimes instead of being maybe just 3 consecutive notes, sometimes you'd hear maybe 2 notes of a difference between the triplets, you know, that sort of thing.
But I remember listening to Tommy in the house, and it was just so beautiful. The music coming from the other end of the room, and Tommy was lost in this world of music. And I remember being deeply, deeply moved, and trying to hide the tears. Not, I didn't want anybody to see me, but Tommy's music did that to me, you know. And reels. I imagine being moved to tears at reels. And this is what Tommy could do, you know. And I don't think this ever occurred to him to produce this effect in people, you know. But it was just the sheer beauty of the music would do that to me, you know. Never forgotten it, and it still does. And listening to some of his recordings yet, it still does.
I didn't really know him that well as a person, but he did strike me as being somebody who was a deep thinker, and he was full of emotion, and that all comes out in his music as well, you know. It's just rich in terms of emotion, you know, whether it's, I mean, there's sometimes when you listen to the airs that he plays, you can really, like, you'd be in tears maybe sometimes, you know, listening to it. The liveliness and the spirit that's in the jigs and in the reels, it's just something that's there naturally. It's never forced. or it never has the feeling, or it never sounds contrived. It's all very natural, do you know, and that's something again that appeals to me.
He could get very nervous, yeah, he could. I think at times, I don't think he always did himself full justice, because I think just, again, that thing of nerves, and I think he was the sort of player he'd think he needed to be in a certain form but it was worth waiting for. Like, when it happened, and it was serious. But sometimes he just, you know, you could detect that he wasn't fully comfortable, you know. So I would have said that, I think his sensitive nature, I think he just kind of, I think would just make him take that little bit of an edge, make him a little bit fearful.
I've watched Tommy perform on a number of occasions. I remember one time going to hear him at I think it was in 2012 at the NAFCO conference in Derry. And he was very nervous, but even like with the nerves still. And he was a man of very few words on the stage. And I remember on that particular occasion, it was a composition recital himself and Liz Carroll were doing. And Liz, of course, she's well able to talk and she's great at playing and she has these fantastic compositions. And Tommy, in contrast, was sitting there, very few words, but his music spoke volumes, you know, on the day. And even that clip that they have, that we can watch now online of Tommy in Milwaukee playing, he's there on the stage as a solo artist. And he's nervous. You can tell that he's nervous about having to speak into the microphone and announce what he's going to play or whatever. But once he plays, like, it's as if he just goes into another world, and the music is so magical. And by, what is it, 45 minutes or an hour, whatever, after all that time playing, the people, they haven't had enough. They want to hear more, and you can just hear that in the response coming from the bull of bus at the end.
I mean, it was such a gift to hear the High Part of the Road. It's because it kind of gave you an idea of what could be done, you know, and it gave you an insight into the approach and the delivery of somebody who's just a master performer, you know, and who also thought deeply about the music, and also his approach to the music. What didn't it just involve the music? Obviously, it did involve a lot of practice and thinking about tunes and all that. But the way he relates it to the whole community and the wider picture, you know, of that community in East Donegal, what they came through, that's the continuing gift. So just a brilliant musician, but also a thinker about the whole thing.
All I know is that he was of our generation, and all I know is that we're so really, really lucky to have had him for the length of time we did have him, for him to have contributed as much as he did. And I'm only talking about him here as a soloist. I mean, his contributions in other areas in terms of playing with the Bothy Band and playing with Matt and playing with Paul and himself, they're immensely kind of successful as well. But as a player, like, you know, I had the good fortune. I did something I don't normally do. I adjudicated a competition there for the Bunor for Padre O'Rea the last time, whatever, before the pandemic, 2 years ago. And I was given, I think, about 80 or 90 fiddle players to listen to beforehand, not knowing any names, just given a number. So that was, for me, was a great experience, because I hadn't actually sat down and listened to that many players in such an intense way for God knows how many years. And the one thing I made my shortlist and did that, but the one message that I took out of that experience was that Tommy was probably the most influential fiddle player of his generation.
Big statement.
Simple as.
Very good. I don't know how to follow that answer. I have loads more questions, but that stopped me in my tracks, sorry.